Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is the No Gluten Zone. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. And if you've been here before, then I thank you for coming back again. Today I wanted to talk about emergency preparedness. And this does really relate to, celiac disease and food allergies and intolerances and things like that. I think it's really, really important. And I wanted to touch on a few things. So I do live in Southern California, and if you've seen in the news, we are having earthquakes. We've had a few and we've had some big ones. I'm far enough away from the epicenter that we feel them and they are strong. And the one last night was pretty long lasting, probably the longest lasting earthquake I've felt in my lifetime. But we haven't had any damage or anything like that because we're so far away. But still, it's a good reminder to remember to be prepared. So I've grown up in Southern California, born and raised here. I did travel in my childhood, and now I've done some traveling out of state as an adult. And we are hoping to move out of California. There's just been so many changes here. It's not the state that I grew up in at all anymore. But, I grew up hearing about earthquakes. It was this scary thing that could happen. And there was one, I think it was in 1971, the year before I was born, in Sylmar. It was a big one. And so I grew up always hearing about that and knowing that earthquakes could happen. And I didn't experience one until I was like 8 or 9. And I was playing in my bedroom and I felt it shaking, and I was thinking to myself, is this an earthquake? Because I really didn't know what they were. And I looked up and the curtains on my bedroom window were like swinging. And I was like, this is an earthquake. It has to be. And I remember I asked my parents and they said they didn't feel anything. But then later on, my dad said he heard in the news that there had been an earthquake at that time in San Diego, which is an hour to 2 hours south of us. So, and it was in that area somewhere. And so he said I was right. My family was really surprised. Then when I was 12 and I was in junior high, I had this science teacher. Man, this guy. I could go on for days about the things that were wrong with this guy. But one of the things was that he went on and on about there was an earthquake coming. It was going to be huge. Devastation was going to be like we've never seen before in our lives. He told us all the gruesome details of things we'd be doing, how there would be dead people, and the students would be having to drag, if we lived, that we'd have to drag the dead bodies out to the PE field and lay them all out there and all this stuff. I mean, I had nightmares from all this stuff. It was way too much, over the top. There's one thing in educating and teaching preparedness, there's another thing in just terrorizing kids, okay? And he showed us movies. I don't even remember what they were, but they were really, really ugly, awful stuff. And he would tell us, like, it'll be way worse than this. This is just a make-believe movie. So I grew up with that. And then I've been through a few since. As I got older, I think in my teenage years, there was October of 1987. There was a pretty big one. And that was up until just recently. That was probably the biggest one that I've been through personally. And I was outside for that one. So I feel like maybe I felt it more because I was outside, because definitely the type of building you're in affects the way it feels to you. I grew up in a house with a raised foundation, I think you call it, where there's like a crawl space underneath. It's sitting up on it's like raised off the ground, and it's not, I was gonna say it's sitting on a slab, but it's not, because there's a crawl space underneath. So I'm not sure what you call that. I think it's called a raised foundation. I grew up in a home like that, and I feel like you felt earthquakes pretty bad in that kind of house. Things would just shake, things would fall off the wall, they'd fall off shelves, and we did have, damage from that kind of stuff with pretty mild earthquakes. But now I live in a house with a cement slab foundation. We're pretty much just on the ground. And I feel like it's not that bad. Like, the house doesn't shake as bad. You don't see, damage. We haven't had anything damaged yet. So I feel like the type of structure you're in, plus the house I grew up in was built like in the late 40s, early 50s. And then the house I live in now was built in 1987. So I feel like they're probably building them better for earthquake preparedness type of stuff the more we get into the future. So it just depends what kind of building you're in, or if you're outside or that kind of thing. But the one that hit last night, it was a 7.1, but like I said, it was far from us. But it was the longest lasting I've experienced since October of 1987. And I could literally feel the rolls coming. And I was in my house sitting on my couch. Because even if you don't live in California or in a place with earthquakes, you know, there's always disasters that can happen anywhere. You know, there can be tornadoes, there could be hurricanes, there can be an EMP could hit all of us, right? So it's just good to be aware and to be prepared, and you never know. I mean, I don't know, maybe just the utilities could just go down. Yourself a generator too. That would be really, really cool. But still, it's a good reminder to remember to be prepared. So I wanted to go over a few tips and then explain why I think it's even more important for us with our food issues, okay? So one thing to point out is keep it simple, really. You know, get a backpack, get a couple of backpacks, because it's best if you have a kit at home, a kit in your car, and a kit at your work. So go buy 3 backpacks and set them up and keep it as simple as you can. That's really the best way to do it. So you want at least 3 days worth of non-perishable foods. And this is where it gets important for us. It's hard for us to find safe food. So we need to find those things and get 3 days worth of them, because in an emergency, we can't just eat anything that's available. It's difficult for us. So it's really, really important that we have things that we can eat and that will keep us safe. So, you know, there's tons of food bars and, you know, meat sticks and things like that. Look for, you know, things that were really filling, that will really fill you up, that are non-perishable. Personally, I love Lara bars, and Country Archer's turkey sticks also are a good one. But the Lara bars especially are very, very filling, and they hold me for quite a while. So I really like them for that. I always have them with me when I'm out running errands. If you have canned food, you want to also make sure to not forget to throw a can opener in there. I know sometimes we forget those things, but it's really important, and just make life that much easier. Can opener doesn't take, you know, just a non-electric one, doesn't take up much space, and it will make the situation so much easier and better. So remember that. Then the water, you want 1 gallon per person per day. A 3-day minimum is really ideal. Beyond that, important would be, you know, flashlights, battery operated radios, along with extra batteries, and make sure they're fresh batteries. Update them periodically. Then think about medications that you need daily, or even supplements. You know, there are supplements that are really crucial for me that I really need, and I would include those in there as well. A first aid kit, just a simple little first aid kit, could really be very helpful. And something you might want to throw in there is just a whistle. You know, it's small, it doesn't take up much space, and if you're needing to call for help, it could be a very valuable thing. You know, you don't know what situation you're going to find yourself in. Also a mask, you know, a dust mask. If there's fires, if there's smoke, you know, if buildings have collapsed, perhaps there's going to be a lot of dust, especially if you have respiratory issues. But even if you don't, throwing a mask in there could really, really come in handy. And something I really think is important is just throw a pack of baby wipes. They are so valuable because there won't be running water, and you've got to clean your hands and clean things. They will be, maybe even a couple packs if you have the space. They will be really, really valuable at that time. Another thing to consider is Maxi Pads. You know, if you're a woman, or there's, you know, you're a husband with a wife, you might need to throw in some Maxi Pads just in case. If you have a baby, think about baby formula and diapers and have enough of those on hand. If you have pets, think about pet food and water for the pets as well. Beyond that, you could consider waterproof matches, you know, blanket or jacket or both. And some people always recommend activity books or some kind of activities for the kids. So, and I think that's probably a really good idea, because it's going to be a really stressful time, and you want to keep the kids occupied. You don't want to be dealing with them and yelling at them, and because they're going to be nervous too, and they're going to have a lot of energy, and it could be really tough. So those are some good tips. But like I said, it's really important to make sure you have food, if you have celiac disease or gluten intolerance or any kind of food allergy, to make sure that you have enough safe food to get you through. Because, you know, sure, there could be someone nearby who's offering you food, but it may not be safe. And if you eat something unsafe, you know, that could be really, really bad, especially if you have celiac disease and now you have diarrhea. You're already low on water and risking dehydration, but now with diarrhea, you're going to almost ensure that you're going to be dehydrated, and that's not good. So you have to think about those things. You know, you might even want to throw in little packets of electrolyte powders and that kind of thing. I love the ones from Seeking Health brand. I'm not affiliated with them. It's just what I buy, what I use. I really like their products, and they have really good electrolytes. I use them when I sauna. After I sauna, I always use them, and they're my favorite that I've found, ingredient-wise, and just the results I get and the way they taste and that. So just some tips to think about. I hope this was helpful to you. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.